Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me at Talk About Pain. And today I'm very excited to interview Beth Bright. She is an Oriental medicine practitioner and acupuncturist here in Denver, Golden area. And over the years, Beth and I have shared common patients who have just sung her praises about the miracles that she performs. And I've been so intrigued over the years to talk to her and find out how she does things. Today I get to do that. So without further ado, Beth, thank you for being here. And I'm very excited to speak with you today.
Thanks, Rick.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I was looking over your little bio, and it looks like you got a degree in philosophy from Whitman College, and then a master's degree in exercise physiology and psychology at the University of Oregon. And is that correct?
It's true.
Okay, great. And then, what you had on there is that after you started working in cardiac rehab and sports medicine, you felt that the Oriental perception of health and healing was better suited to you. So what was it about that experience that made you go that direction?
It's a long story, but I was working with people who had almost died with I was doing phase 1 and phase 2 cardiac rehabilitation. So in the hospital and then outside the hospital. And, they were coming along because the surgery was successful. So mechanically they were working well, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they were not doing so well. That's a very unstable time. And that was just not being addressed. And so that's what they wanted to talk about. And I felt like that was a big lack and a big dissatisfaction for me. And I knew that in Oriental medicine, the whole person was the priority, and you could not separate that from the context of what was going on. And that's what kind of made me feel like, well, then I think I have to explore this a little differently. Yeah. And much to my parents' disappointment, I was not going to medical school, which was my plan. I went to Japan and I just started studying this medicine there. And I was lucky enough to work in a clinic where I learned how to do shiatsu. So beginning working on the energy meridians in the body with pressure with my thumb and hands, and really experiencing energy. And then the language barrier got more technical. I couldn't understand it. And I came back to the US after 2 years and enrolled in Chinese medicine school, which I was in the first class that graduated from Bastyr University in Seattle. Started to study acupuncture and then went back to China and worked in 2 different hospitals there as an intern, and really got to experience it in that context of a medical system that had been around for acupuncture 2,000 years, Chinese medicine 4,000 years, at least.
Yeah.
So
you think there's something to that?
Just a little something. And it was nice at that time. That was a long time ago, and you couldn't just go to China. And so I was there in 1987 and again in 1993. And just to see the change in the culture in those years, but also the acceptance of the medicine and the acceptance in China of more Western medicine. So that was the alternative medicine in China. So when you went to a hospital, you'd have Chinese medicine. If you went to a different kind of hospital, like the teaching hospital where I worked, it was integrated with alternative medicine, which was Western, and traditional medicine, which was Chinese. And that just inspired me for a vision of what medicine could be in this country. And it was so effective. So, yeah.
That must have been an amazing experience to see that integration. Do you, in terms of how you practice then, given your background in exercise physiology and in sports medicine, Do you apply that background to what you do now, or is it for the most part Oriental medicine and acupuncture? Where does that have a role in your
Yeah,
treatment?
well, whatever we do in life, we integrate and bring with us if it's useful, and hopefully we're able to let go of what isn't helpful and useful in our lives. But I would say being able to have conversations with people who are oriented from that very material perspective of Western culture and Western medicine, it's been very valuable. But in terms of how I think and how I address what needs to happen in the clinic, I don't go there at all. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
And, and so really to understand what we're doing, we have to talk about cosmology, I guess. And, maybe 10, 12 years ago, there were 4 astrophysicists at UC Berkeley who won the Nobel Prize for mathematically quantifying the makeup of the universe. And they said that 4% of the universe is form, matter, material, and 96% is formless energy. Those were their words, formless energy. And so we are dealing with the immaterial, the formless. And that's a whole different paradigm for what's going on in the clinic and in life. So the formless energy is something we can experience, and we do all the time. We just don't recognize it that way. Going into nature, which is how the whole Chinese medicine got formulated, was people's experience in nature, that we have really different feelings when we're at the seaside or in the desert or on a mountaintop. There's very different quality of nature that we are participating in. And so recognizing these kind of different qualities, what is that? And when we leave that setting, we feel differently. What's going on there? And when we're experiencing bright sunshine versus a rainstorm, or being in a big forest, we experience life differently. We experience ourselves in response to that differently. And so what is creating those different experiences? And this is the kind of questioning and coming about for explanation with energy, chi. And we're experiencing something that doesn't have substance inside ourselves. Our response, our ideas and our feelings are not material. And what is that? So then we start to talk about chi, energy. And this is kind of the foundation of the cosmology. So recognizing that something's going on here, and what is that? And so this formless energy then can be differentiated, and it becomes separated into what we call yin and yang. And the yang is the energy that is expanding, moving, warming, very active. And this expansion takes place, and then energy reaches a maximum expansion, and it starts to condense, contract, come inwardly, and become still, and that's yin. And that goes on and then expands, just like daytime and nighttime is talked about in terms of yin and yang. Midnight being the most yin time, and then the energy starts expanding till sunrise, that's big yang, till noon, that's very big expansion, high yang. And then the yin starts to take over, the energy starts to move toward nighttime, and that's the yin time. And so we have this cycle all the time. And we look at the world in this yin and yang relative terms. We look at the human being in those terms. And the yin and yang then further divide into the 5 elements, fire, earth, metal, water, and wood that we experience in nature. And then we divide that even further into they call the myriad things. And that's all the matter and all of the energy that we experience in life. So when we're looking at it in this big perspective, a human being is made up of chi. And of course, we have a material frame and we have matter in us, but what runs the whole system, what makes us alive, is chi. And when we get down to our own makeup, it's pure energy. So much like the 96% of the universe is formless energy, likewise in us. Only I would take it further and say, even that 4% of form is actually chi. So, and this has been developed into a medical system that is very sophisticated, very precise, and yet very open, and something that we can experience in ourselves when we learn how to sense.
Wow, what a beautiful explanation. So the yin and yang, did I pronounce that correctly? Okay. When you talk about the expansion and contraction of that energy, is that kind of what in Western medicine, when we refer to circadian rhythms, is there a correlation there?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
How would you describe that?
So we describe organs as being more yin or more yang. And yin and yang are not fixed states. They are relative to each other, and they're a way of understanding the condition of a particular, whatever you're looking at that time. Mm-hmm. So in nature, we would say, a mountain is, let's look at water. Water would be considered a more yin element compared to fire. Fire is expansive and hot and moving. And so compared to, an ocean that is wet and relatively, in a big picture term, stable. So the ocean is more yin compared to the fire that's more yang. But within that ocean, within water element, if the ocean is stormy and very active on the surface, that's a much more yang experience than sitting in the doldrums and not moving anywhere and the water is very still. Then you'd say, well, then the yin element is further divided into yin and yang. And, water that is flowing like a river is very active compared to a pond that's just very quiet and still. Further division of yin and yang. And the pond, if it's frozen in the winter, very different quality of stillness than if it's, turning over in the springtime, the water coming up to the surface. And so the pond can be divided into more yin when it's winter and frozen than yang when it's moving in the springtime. So, everything's divided into that. We would have day-long discussions about what is yin and what is yang. So in the human being, different organs are classified this way. So organs that are more dense and filled in are more yin. Organs that are more open are more yang. So like the colon is considered a yang organ compared to the lungs that are very spongy and dense. And so they're more yin. So kind of like that. And so when qi and blood are moving in the body, qi is a very relatively yang energy compared to blood, which is fluid and liquid. It's more yin. And so, when you're talking about circadian rhythms, the rhythm being, when we're more active and awake, a more yang state. When we're sleeping, a more yin state. So, and it's always changing. We kind of have it all. Yeah. And so the idea when we're healthy is that qi and blood are flowing very freely. The organs, our whole organ system is functioning very normally. And we are creative. We are stable emotionally. We are mentally alert. Sleep is good. Mood is good. Emotions come and go very easily. We're not stuck.
Yeah.
So when qi gets stuck, problems happen. So, and pain is a reflection of qi that is stuck. And the longer it's been stuck, qi may become blocked. And blockage is more serious than stuck. Or stagnant.
Uh-huh.
So if we're talking about inside the human being, when energy, and say this is our system, energy, we're always moving from, like the heart, opening, everything's flowing, condensing, everything's coming inwardly, opening up, everything's moving, and then we gather that energy inside of us, like the rhythm of a heart pumping, rhythm of lungs expanding and then contracting as the inspiration and expiration of breathing take place, the gut system, opening up, receiving food, then moving it through the whole digestive tract. So, and this is the same pattern in the whole living universe. We're always moving between a state of expansion and then relaxing. We come back to resting and then expanding again and resting. So yang activity, yin activity. And so in the human body, where there's pain, the energy has contracted and stayed that way for many reasons. And this can happen on physical level, emotional, mental, spiritual dimension. All of these are energy. And so pain can result from any of those dimensions becoming stuck. We can have physical pain from emotional stress. We've experienced that. From mental stress. Then the shoulders start to tense up and everything gets uncomfortable. And so, because all of these things can't be really separated. So
you've trained to identify the source of where the qi is stuck. And is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So
yeah, we're reading energy.
Yeah. So when this is what's fascinating about me is, or not about me, but to me, is that you how do you, because it's an energy, right? And it's flowing, it seems, and it seems to be changing, expanding and contracting. How is it that you can identify how or where that's being stuck? How does that process happen?
Yeah. How do you know?
Yeah. How do you sense that?
It's like working with wind. You can't see wind, but you see the effect of it. So, this is the training in Chinese medicine. How do you read energy in the body? What are the signs of what's happening inside? And so we take pulses, 12 different pulses that reflect the 12 different main organ energies in the body. We look at the tongue. The coating on the tongue is a reflection of the organ system in the body. We look at the coloring of the skin. We look at the quality of qi in the eyes. We notice the scent of the person. We're noticing a lot of different dimensions of being human, not looking at blood test results on a sheet of paper, although that's very helpful, but able to diagnose with a lot of observation, palpation, And then as we become more practiced with Qi, how do I want to say this? I'm very interested in Qigong, which is a branch of Chinese medicine. And that's working with the energy through movements. And movement that may be overt, like physically moving a limb or arm or in the whole body, the spine. It may be moving energy with visualization or sound. And the great thing is it's experiential. So you don't have to believe in anything. It really requires just being open to very human experiences. And however, subtle they may be, and that's where it's helpful to have a teacher to say, oh, did you notice this? That's significant, and so, this is kind of, there are many ways to develop the ability to sense energy. Certain forms of meditation, certain kinds of Qigong are very helpful. That's the path that I've practiced. And so it's an inward cultivation to get good at it. There are signs that we are trained to look at and feel, and then to hone those skills, there's internal cultivation of the practitioner. So it takes time.
Yeah. That's the feeling I get when I'm listening to you, is that, oh my gosh, this would take forever to learn and master.
It's a lifetime cultivation, development, so never boring. There's always more.
Right.
And we're very, very fortunate in this time to live in the United States, because, I was so fortunate to meet the masters that I was able to train with, because they were leaving China. And some, a few came from Taiwan, a few came from China, because the Chinese medicine with communism became a state medicine and it was unified. And a lot of the regions in China that had different techniques for practicing and different medicines, herbal medicines, kind of got unified and systematized. And they wanted to make it, they modeled the hospital system after Western medicine having a system. So a lot of the more developed ways of thinking and addressing what's happening in a body were kind of put on dial tone, and to make a humongous healthcare system, so there was some necessity to it, but there wasn't a toleration of anything, mentioning human spirit. That's kind of like, that's not.
So it sounds like, they were in a process of standardizing.
Absolutely.
That approach.
Yeah. After they outlawed Chinese medicine and then realized they wanted to modernize after World War II, and realized Western medicine was way too expensive for that number of people in the population. So then they let the doctors they hadn't killed or put in jail back out of jail to kind of put together a new system and standardize the language and all of that. So, in that process, to carry on lineages, the people who were able to make it to the West came, and that kind of brought this out. So, I've just been really lucky to meet the people who have influenced me so profoundly.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit to your training in Japan, where you talked about learning to sense or work with the energy in body. What can you describe what that was like to experience that energy? What it was like to learn it and say, oh, there it is, kind of thing. What was that process like for you?
So when I first got there, I met my sensei. Sensei is the name for teacher and doctor, because a good doctor should teach you how to take care of yourself. And I had finished my master's degree, where we're really trained to ask a lot of questions and really, get to the premise of, is that really true or not? And I was doing that. And he made me sit down by myself and meditate for 1 month before he would speak to me.
Wow.
Yeah. I had to calm down. And I had to stop being so active mentally and come in. And I'd had a little previous training in meditation. So he didn't really say much to me, just, sit there and be quiet and meditate. I'm like, how do you meditate? And he's like, go in, breathe. He didn't offer much, but I was so intrigued. And he taught a group of foreigners, and he spoke enough English that was going on, and I could see what they were doing. And I really wanted to learn that. So I meditated for a month.
Had you meditated prior to this, Beth? No.
I'd learned in sports psychology. We'd kind of explored different ways to go inside and tune in. But and I really liked it. As I calmed down, I started to, experience myself so differently. And I would ask, so then I was allowed to come back and participate in the class a little bit.
And so you just stayed in Japan for a year?
2 years.
I'm sorry. During this period, a month, just meditating. And were you working?
I would come to class and sit in the corner, literally.
Really? And was there other stuff going on in the class, or okay, but you weren't allowed to participate? What, you facing the corner or something?
I think I was facing away from the activity, but I had to just sit there and be quiet and meditate.
Oh my gosh.
Which is very Japanese, really.
It must have been so distracting hearing all of this stuff that you want to learn and not being allowed to learn it, distracting you out of that meditation all the time.
I had to close my eyes and breathe and go inside.
Wow.
And that's good training in life. Life is very noisy and busy. So how do we stay connected to ourselves internally?
How was it determined that your meditation was to the point that you were allowed to participate? How did that?
I guess he could just tell I'd settled down enough, and I wasn't going to, come from the same orientation.
Yeah.
Because to sense energy, you can't be really intellectual, and I wasn't open enough.
Got it.
So, when it's like when you look at things, you can have that hard focus look, or you can have that soft gaze where it's a little fuzzy. And that's what working with energy kind of requires.
Okay.
So it's that opening up internally and not having this mind guide everything so strongly. And I'm sure that's what he was looking for.
Yes.
I was intellectually open, but not energetically open.
I see.
So, that was first step. And then continuously through the whole training, meditation was a big part. And, it's a skill.
Yes.
So becoming more skillful, which has been a lifelong development.
Right. So it sounds like you almost had to get out of the way to experience what this was about.
Yeah, the mind to get out.
So difficult for us in this culture to do that.
Totally not how we are trained to have higher education.
Yeah. My just a little story. My experience was something similar to that. Was my Somatics training, this is how long it took me. So this training, you go, it's for 3 years, and you have to go back every 6 months for 9 days to go through each module of this training. And it was so there were six modules in total. It wasn't until the fifth model that I realized that they were trying to change me. That's how stuck I was in my way of thinking. And then, because they were always talking about, you know, having this soft gaze and, you know, being softer with your vision of your patients. And I was just like, soft, what's going on here? What's this mechanical issue that we're, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't until and they said, does anyone have anything to share? I said, you know, I just realized that this past 2.5 years, you've been trying to change me. And they're like, ding, ding, ding. So, you know, maybe you did it. It took you a month. It probably would have taken me a lot longer to learn how to
was
meditate.
intense.
Yeah, I bet. But it changes you completely once you understand how to see things from a softer point of view and see more of the person that's in front of you. Yeah. So I can understand that. So when you first then were able
to say experience them.
Pardon me?
I would say experience chi. When you encounter another person's chi, it's a very different experience than understanding something. And that's where developing the ability to sense is very helpful. You could practice acupuncture very intellectually. If you learned how to read pulses and read the tongue and the palpation and those things I was talking about, but to really encounter chi, it requires that softening and an opening, and then an ability to interpret what you're experiencing. And you know, luckily, we don't have to invent anything. There are ways that have been used for thousands of years to help people get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that experience like when you were able to finally, you know, be taught this information? And what was that experience like when you first started sensing someone's chi for the first time?
Well, you know, we're talking about developing intuition. And for me, I am very visual, so I would see chi in the body. I could see where things weren't flowing very well. I could experience, I don't know how to explain it, that person, and see stories in their life. And, you know, at first I wondered what on earth was going on. And then I got more training in that was reading energy. And then it's a whole nother level of training of what do you do with that? Because there's energy and there's information. And what are you going to focus on? And, you know, the information can be quite distracting, not helpful. Sometimes it is. But, you know, I would say it's taken me decades to learn this. And what's helpful to talk about when you're sensing and getting a lot of information, you know, what's really important in it. And important being what's most helpful for healing. So, you know, that's why it's a continuous development.
Yeah. Yeah. I like you, I'm always learning. It's a never, and it's so amazing how many different levels we function on. You know, there's so many ways in and out. And yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
You've been doing this for how long now, Beth?
I went to Japan in 86.
86.
So started studying that.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, I agree with you. It's never ending. And just when you think you've got it, you know, something new walks in the door, you know.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after I came home from Japan, I helped open a branch of an athletic club in San Francisco. And I was trying to figure out, it was before I went to Bastyr, I was trying to figure out how to incorporate what I learned in Japan back here. And there weren't very many Chinese medicine schools around then, or at least I knew. So I was working with people in the gym, athletic training, and I remember a guy coming in and saying, Beth, all of a sudden I'm having all these knee issues, and it was all kind of muscular around there. And it was right, all his pain was right on the stomach meridian. And I said, well, this might sound kind of funny, but how's your stomach doing? And he just looked at me and he goes, how did you know? I've been having stomach problems. So I was starting to put it together like that with people just thinking in these really rudimentary terms and going, oh, this is actually really working. And so I was looking for a way to figure out how to go further with that. And that's what kind of helped me get there. So, very, really kind of simple things that started to put all the pieces together, that there's so much to be gained in looking at people this way and how to be helpful. And, something that may seem like one thing can actually, the most helpful way to approach it may be quite different, so.
We had a little chat before this, and you mentioned that, once you see how we work as a system, it becomes simple. Mm-hmm. What is that system? Is that the chi energy and how to work with the chi energy, or describe the system that you were talking about when you made that comment?
Well, there are a lot of ways to talk about this. On one hand, the whole human being system of how we are alive and how energy is moving the blood and moving the emotions and the facilitator for digestion, respiration, circulation, nervous system, everything. And so that's the whole system of energy. And in another way, we recognize 26 kinds of chi inside the body. And the chi that runs each of these systems is differentiated. And then the chi that runs the emotions, the mind, our human spirit, all of these things are differentiated. And they have a way of showing themselves on the body. And sometimes on the surface of the body, but being complex people, usually not. So, but we have to have a way to read it and assess what level things are happening at. And so there's that system. It's what you study in Chinese medicine school. And so, like the way that we put together, for example, emotions and the organs. In Western psychology, we're trained that the brain is really the foundation of function for the entire person. And this isn't true to Chinese medicine, that especially with the emotions, they reside in the organs. And then in a nanosecond, the brain says, oh, that's anger. Oh, that's fear. And then other functions happen. But the initial emotion that we feel comes from the organ energies. And, we kind of experience this. If a little child gets suddenly scared, they wet their pants. And that's because the kidney organ houses fear. It also houses creativity. The lungs house sadness, grief, but also compassion. When the energy is contracted, we have that fear state, that sad state. When the energy is flowing very well, we have compassion for others. We have a lot of creativity in life. With the heart, when the energy is contracted, we have hatred, we have indifference, coldness. But when the heart is open, the energy is moving well, joyfulness, loving kindness. When the stomach energy is contracted and not flowing well, we worry, we get anxious. When the stomach and whole digestive system energy is flowing very well, we have confidence. And what I leave out, when the liver, gallbladder is contracted, we get frustrated, angry. And when it's moving very well, we have foresight and courage. So they're all, this is happening all the time. And when we're moving through life and we respond to situations and we have emotions that happen with it, emotions usually have a story, and there's a physical aspect to that because of this organ system. Mood's like clouds in the sky. Mood comes and goes. But emotions are a little more significant to work with. And so, I'm working with somebody lately who has pretty severe diverticulitis. So the colon isn't working very well. The small intestine isn't working very well. And, looking at this small intestine is where we sort everything out. And we sort out food that way. The first third, we sort out proteins. The second third, we sort out grains, and the third, roughage, vegetables and fruits and stuff. And so the small intestine's job is to sort things out physically. It's also how we sort things out emotionally and mentally. Like, oh, is this important or not? Oh, if you're cleaning out your closet, small intestine is employed. How do we sort through all this stuff? What's worth keeping? What isn't? What do we pass on? And then the large intestine gets to let it go if it's functioning smoothly. And so all of this has a big emotional component to it. So when we're looking at somebody's health and, they keep bringing something up, it's like, well, that the same thing up over and over. It's like, well, large intestine's kind of not flowing very well there. What's going on? Or they come in with a big, large intestine problem. Well, then you're asking, what is there something you holding on to in life, some experience that's been hard to understand and can't let go, or belief, or something like that. So we put it together in a way that is multidimensional and very practical, very, very functional. At least that's the attempt.
Yeah. And how do people hear you how do they receive this information? Are most people open to this? I imagine if they're coming to you, then they're already open to this type of thinking.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually. That's all it takes. It's not that some people are so sensitive and so they can feel everything, and some people aren't. It's more, are we open?
Mm-hmm.
Are we open to experiencing ourselves? Are we open to experiencing life differently? And we know we're stuck. We know that feeling. We
Yes.
know when we've reached our limitation and our capacity needs to expand so we can get through whatever the challenge is. And it's very interesting how working in the body with energy can help that happen. We can experience ourselves. Oh, actually, I just had an insight on how to handle that. And, maybe I've assessed the situation incorrectly. Maybe it would be more helpful to think of it this way. And that can naturally happen when the energy is moving differently. So, we definitely experience this in Qigong also, where we come to a challenging movement or stance and we feel like, I can't do it. I've reached the limit of my capacity up to this point. And then we have a choice. Are we going to hold this position longer and work with ourselves? Or are we just going to abandon it? And then, for me, when I come to this point, it's like, well, how long have I abandoned this? Probably a long time. Maybe it's a good time to just figure this out, and you don't know what it is you're figuring out necessarily. It's just, this is really uncomfortable. This stance, if you're doing like I don't know, any kind of movement or pose, and you're repeating it for half an hour, and it gets very, very challenging. It's like, well, what is this? Because there's so-and-so who can do this for an hour and they're fine. It's like, what am I coming up against myself that is the challenge that really I need to relax about and open up. So in this way, it's continuous personal development. And it's developing ourselves in ways that the conscious mind doesn't understand. And yet we can have experiences in ourselves that we can understand, but it's not with words even. So it's a very interesting.
It's very interesting. So it sounds like from what your description is, it sounds like the first step, for instance, let's go back to your description of not being able to do that movement. What is it that is blocking me? I think that it sounds like the first step is to ask the right question about how to approach this, or what question to ask about this.
I think the best question is, how do I proceed? Why is this happening? I was trained in philosophy. All we did was ask why. No, that's a lot of trouble. I don't think we get to know the answers to that very often. What is going on? We can identify. What is going on? This is painful. This is challenging. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. This is a challenge for me. How do I want to respond? That's the good, juicy stuff.
Got it.
And so how do we respond? Very first, relax. Really relax. Okay, that's pretty challenging in the face of extreme discomfort, or even a little discomfort. Our instinct is to run away.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of training to face it. And then, when we're talking about energy inside, really accept what our energy is doing. It's stuck and it's uncomfortable. And we may experience that in all those dimensions: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So, okay, the energy is really stuck here. And so it's identifying physical pain. Where is it? Emotional pain. Where is it? It's not out there somewhere. It's in here somewhere. So where is that discomfort? That's the big step.
Yeah.
Then how do we approach it? Relaxing, really, closing our eyes, locating, relaxing. In other words, accepting what is inside, realizing its energy. And if the energy stays stuck over time, it may materialize, but it's still energy. So deeply accepting that, deeply allowing what's going on. So meeting ourselves without resistance, that's a big skill, big skill. So that alone will begin activating chi to move. Because when we're resisting something, it really stays in this stuck state. When we start accepting, oh, there's a little room in here. Oh, okay, I can actually relax with this. Oh, that creates a lot more room. And so, this is not common knowledge or easy to do. It's what acupuncture is doing. And we're receiving this treatment kind of passively. And the energy starts to open up. We have comfort where there was discomfort. Something's happening. Qi and blood are starting to move through there. When we're doing this in meditation or Qigong, we're facing ourselves more actively. And we can with guidance with acupuncture too. But that acceptance of what is in our own energy system and understanding that that's what's going on at the very root of everything. And then that activation of chi to move brings a shift. And then, deeply appreciating what's happening here. And so it takes training to recognize those events that are happening. And they can be very subtle. They can be also pretty overt. But, I'm very careful after giving an acupuncture treatment to ask patients, what do you notice here? What do you notice there? How is it compared to when you came in? What % better do you feel? Because it's not all or nothing either, as a healer, So, yeah, we're working together, helping people become more aware of what's happening internally. And, I would say that's a lifelong, continuous process. It changes depending on what life brings us and how we have to respond to it. So
it sounds like the first step that someone would need to make would be to be open to receiving the answers.
Yeah.
And then you can go down that, then you can start noticing.
Just the notion that perhaps we have something built in that can guide us.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because we are so trained and somewhat human nature, there's no judgment in this whatsoever, to be very externally oriented. We have to scan the environment to see, are we safe or not? And we're trained in this our whole lives, and then educated in it. We get feedback. How are we doing? So our whole orientation is to the external world. And when we're working with energy, of course, energy is functioning all the time in the external world. But when it comes to healing, we're focusing internally. And that's a skill to develop. If we're looking at the body only mechanically and materially, which is what Western medicine is very good at, it's just limited. So sometimes we can get stuck and have a problem that keeps coming back because the mechanics can get worked out, but the chi hasn't really opened up or moved there. And so, oh, darn, I thought my neck was better, but I'm back again.
Mm.
And you know how healing goes, everything opens up and then everything opens up. So you could open this up very mechanically, and then maybe the root cause of that neck pain is, I cannot see a situation from any other angle. And this situation is very painful and I can only see it this way. And so it's really sore over here.
Wow.
But
that's
we
so
don't
fascinating.
put those things together.
That's
And
so fascinating.
yeah, we open up the mechanics of the neck, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I could see how they could be thinking it this way. And all I could see was this way. So, these things are all interconnected. And it's just that with looking at it energetically, maybe all of those things can be addressed at one time. So
that sounds lovely. So the acupuncture, then the purpose of that is to unblock the chi blockage. Is that correct? Get the
chi
flowing.
flow.
Mm-hmm.
Help the chi and blood move very freely throughout the body. When we're in a flow state, it's kind of matching the blueprint of how we're designed.
Uh-huh.
And when something alerts us that we're uncomfortable, whatever dimension, okay, she's not moving very well. So, if then we pay attention to that. And with acupuncture, well, where does it hurt? It hurts here. Okay. What's the relationship of that location? And how do I, relationship of that with the person's experience? And, sometimes things are just simple. Sometimes they're not involving a lot of emotional or mental or spiritual dimension stress. Sometimes they're just, yeah, I ran into a table and now my elbow hurts, and so, okay, and the way I was trained with acupuncture, that doesn't mean I stick needles in the elbow. It's like, that's wounded. There's a lot of chi stuck there, chi and blood. You don't, there's a saying in Chinese medicine, you don't spank a crying child. That does not help them reach a calm, happy state. So you don't needle where it hurts. So, I will see what channels are most painful in that elbow, and then I will know what other channels in the body will support and address that. And so I may treat the corresponding channels in the knee, because the knee is an image of the elbow. And so approach, that's my thinking. And when I'm trying to help figure out the how, we know the what,
Yes.
how in the elbow. And so how do we want to approach that? There are many, many ways.
Yes. So you also, from what I understand, work a lot with herbs.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain how you use herbs to help people?
Yeah. We use herbs and we use minerals, and everything is chi, and everything in the universe is alive. And in a state that we can see or experience, and this is where how fine-tuned are we, or we just can't, it's beyond our capacity. And it's very interesting with technology getting more and more advanced. We're able to measure these things now. Heart math has been able to identify how far the energy from the heart expands outside of the body. So they're measuring energy. And same with the plants that we use and the stones that we use for stone medicine. And knowing where the plant is growing, under what conditions it has the most energy to offer, when it's best to be harvested, under a full moon, under full sun, when it's a cloudy day, all of these elements go into the energetic component of that plant and what it's bringing to us. The conditions of the soil, was it grown where there was a lot of wind blowing through? That gives it a certain kind of energy, as opposed to just, growing in constant rain in a rainforest. That gives it a very different, a lot more yin than where it's very windy, a lot more yang. So we're looking at all of these components that go into a plant to what that plant is growing up with, that is contained, the information that's contained in that. And then the plant itself has a lot of energetic imprint and information. And that's what we take in. Same with any food. What we're taking in is the life force of that substance. And so how it was raised in its life and how it experienced life is what we are now filling ourselves with. And so with plants, they are seasonal. And so the effect of an herbal formula is shorter term than like stones. When we make stone medicine elixirs or use stones on the body on acupuncture points, stones take a long time to evolve. Really long time. And so the medicine that they can offer is usually longer term solutions. And then we look at the channels that plant or stone influences in the body, and the direction the energy moves from it. So, for example, with food is medicine that tastes good. Herbal medicine is medicine that doesn't taste good, so we mush it all up and make it into a remedy. And Chinese medicine, we very rarely use one plant or one thing at a time, extremely rarely, because if we use one thing, it has a side effect. So the idea is to make a medicine that is so, we call it elegantly balanced, that there is no side effect from it. It contains what we need to balance the condition. It's really sloppy medicine to say these side effects may occur, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, you've created a dozen more problems out of your solution, then that's not a solution that's very good. So even in the hospital in China, if Western medicine was prescribed, we would make Chinese medicine formula to deal with the side effects of that Western medicine, so the person could be healthy from taking the medicine. What a concept.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, I would love to see that brought into this culture.
Yeah, can you imagine?
So many problems from pharmaceuticals. But anyway, so the plant may move energy upward, downward, deep inwardly, outwardly to the surface. It may be more warming or cooling to the body. It may be more yin or yang. And so like with root vegetables like carrots, they grow down into the earth, and they're orange in color. And so these plants have a signature of energy in them that we can interpret. And so carrots, when we eat them and cook them, they will bring energy downward in the body. And compared to like celery, that is a stalk, it moves up, it grows up like that, but it's full of water. It's very yin. So when we eat celery, it moves the chi upward in the body, but it's not strong. Like a carrot is dense. That moves chi down dense way. You know, celery, it moves chi up, but it can't sustain it. It's too watery, and then it brings the chi back down again. So it's a very important component for like headaches. You want the energy to reach the head, but then direct the chi down so it's not stuck here in the head, which is what a headache is. The chi is stuck here. And so we're thinking like this when I make food prescriptions for patients, when I make herbal formulas for patients, we're thinking this way and putting many things, different herbs together to make a formula that will not give a side effect that's well balanced. So say, for example, we differentiate between many different kinds of headaches based on the location of the pain, the quality of the pain. So say I'm making someone has headaches in their temples, and I make a formula for that. I will put herbs in there that reach the temple. These are the gallbladder channel, so that's indicating to me the stress kind of headache, the liver gallbladder region of the body. Organs have to do with frustration, impatience, anger. So I know that this is someone experiencing a lot of stress that's frustrating and making them angry. This is the qualities that go into that kind of a headache. So I'm using plants in my formula that can soothe the liver and gallbladder, that can move upward in the body, and then other herbs in the formula that can bring the energy back down and circulate chi and blood, relaxing this whole system. And so I would never just make an herb that goes up here. That would create a lot of side effects, a lot of problems. So, and it's not just chi that has to move. There's a lot of blood in the head. So I have to make a formula that includes moving blood and circulating that very freely. And so, you know, you're putting together a lot of things to make a very effective medicine for a person. So acupuncture is easier in that way.
Oh, okay.
Right? You're just, you know, I know what is involved with this location, what channels are involved, what points in the body would help that chi move down, you know, open up that contraction of energy that's creating pain, how to soften that, open it up again. begin the circulation so someone can feel at ease. And a lot of times when people have that kind of headache, they sigh a lot. The chi is so stuck. Sighing is trying to release stuck energy in this diaphragm area of the body where the liver is located. So, there are just many things that I'm looking for in the body. Oh, the person just sighed. Okay, the chi is starting to move. Okay, they're closing their eyes. That's where the energy is located. So, we're just putting together a lot of things.
I get the sense that you are like an expert tracker. You can read so many signs of what is transpiring on many.
That's medicine.
Yeah.
That's medicine.
Yeah.
Repeatable, verifiable observation over several thousand years. I would say it's scientifically proven.
Yeah. All right. So, a lot of people out there have back pain, especially in our society. So let's just talk about that for a second. If someone came to you with back pain, how do you look at them? How do you begin to help them? What have you found to be the common causes of something like that?
Yeah. Oh, at least 30 to 50% of my practice is back pain at different times.
Yeah.
So many causes. So, what is going on? And we're looking at 3 main channels in the back and in the spine and beside the spine, and then the bigger muscle areas that on the shoulders are influenced. So 4, the shoulders and the mid back, and then low back is more. So sacrum area. So we know they have pain. So where that pain is located, is it upper back, middle back, lower back, sacrum? That gives me a lot of information about. And are we talking treating it with acupuncture? Is that what your question is?
Just however you half of your practice is back pain. So I'm just curious, how do you approach it? And let's just say central back pain.
Okay. So looking at, first of all, what channels are contracted. And they're the ones that are located there. So, and I know the relationship between those channels and many other channels in the body. They have interconnections that are very specific and very strong. So I assess what's the stuck meridian. And then I figure out what channels would help relieve that. What are their teammates, And because depending on the kind of pain, people maybe they can't lie down. Maybe they certainly couldn't lie down face down, so they're facing up. So I'm not going to needle right there on the back. I could, but that's not as effective. So usually. So I'm looking at what channels will treat that sick, contracted chi. And then I will come up with points that will address that. And there's a specific way I have to figure out which points will do that. It's based on the Chinese Bagua. It's a whole system of, this is Dr. Richard Tan's balance method. He's from Taiwan, and he was my mentor for many, many, many years. He passed on a few years ago. But so I'm trained in this way. And then we will come up with the points that will address those problems. And generally, I'm treating that on the arms and legs. And usually 8 or 10 needles can clear the pain. And I expect people to have 50 to 100% pain relief while they're having a treatment. And then they get up, and if their back pain returns by the time they get to their car, I am thinking that's structural. that's more structural than energetic. And if the pain relief lasts a few hours or more than a day or whatever, then it's more energetic. I can really help them. And so that's kind of what I'm, how I look at things. If they're doing Qigong, if they're beginning that, then certain movements can be very powerfully helpful. If they've been doing Qigong many, many years, then the movement is less important. It's how we address ourselves where we feel our limited capacities are. So, and then with herbs, kind of similarly, knowing what plants go to those meridians and moving the qi upward in the body, and how do you circulate qi and blood flow. There are also medicated plasters that we use that have plant medicine inside the little Band-Aid like thing that we'll put directly on the places where it's needed, and they can build bone. Acupuncture is great at treating bulging disc. It will just resolve it completely. If it's bone on bone, that's very structural.
In your experience, what percent of the people roughly would you say have a structural primary issue? By that I mean musculoskeletal. I'm guessing that's what you mean, versus an energetic issue, or is it often just a combination of 80% energetic and 20% structural kind of thing?
Well, that's a hard question. I would say,
that's my Western thinking, right? I've got to have a percentage.
Yeah, because, in one way, even when it's a structural issue, it's energetic. It's just how much work would it take?
Got it.
And how much pain is a person in? And for how much time are they willing to give a healing process? And so it's very hard. But I would say, and structural, I mean bone on bone, do they want surgery? Because even a structural bone on bone situation is qi. If it's tendon, ligament, muscle, it's still energetic, because qi is what helps that tight muscle open again and move through there. So, that's the conversation that has to be had.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. This is so fascinating for me, Beth. I mean, I've had this vague idea of that Chinese medicine was very, complex and deep, and, works on many different levels. And you've really helped me understand that I can't learn it from a book. And, it's just, it's really amazing. I mean, what you do. And I really feel like we do need more of this in our society, certainly.
It works well.
I think it's why probably we have so much chronic pain, is because we don't have this, we
don't understand the roots.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. Chronic, we have to know ourselves a little better.
Yeah.
And I would say, though, there are some very good books.
Oh, great.
There are two that everyone going into Chinese medicine school is required to read, because this is a different paradigm for understanding life and understanding how do we find guidance in our own lives? How do we come out of challenge into a new opening, a new perspective, a new way to live life? And so, hopefully if you've gone through Chinese medicine school, you don't think the same way. And I will say, and hopefully whatever education we have, when we finish it, we don't think the same way. We've outgrown what we previously held. But this is a very different paradigm for understanding what's happening inside a human body for healing, and a very different cosmology for then how do we interpret what we're experiencing in our lives, and what good is it? How does that help us? And if it's not helpful, then why bother?
Yeah.
So the book, The Web That Has No Weaver by Ted Kapchuk, that's a classic for looking at the paradigm of yin and yang and elements and this whole perspective. And he is in charge of the Chinese medicine program at Harvard Medical School now. So they're looking at this. And then the other classic is called Between Heaven and Earth by Korngold and Bienfeld. And they are doing a beautiful job at looking at the 5 elements and emotions and physical and that whole intersection in the body. So those are the 2 classics that kind of give a broad picture of this paradigm.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Speaking of books, I think you mentioned that you're about to publish your own book.
I am.
So
yes.
Tell me a little bit about what that is about and when we can expect it.
When we can expect it is my question. I hope this summer. It's called Embody Eating, and it's about understanding food. And, this comes from years of patients asking me, well, what do I eat?
Right.
And probably the number one question in a clinic. And so, and years of me scribbling down, recommendations and recipes and things like that. And so this is a compilation. I originally started it as a handout just to give patients, and it's taken on a life of its own. And it has become this book that I think is going to be really fun.
As all good books, should develop, right?
I guess so.
Yeah.
You would know more than me. So looking at the energetics of food and how to eat energetically. How do we receive food? What is the whole process energetically that is going on when that happens, and what is different food doing for us, and kind of a map of how to think about this when we're shopping and when we're cooking. And then I have probably about 30 recipes that kind of illustrate what I'm trying to talk about. And yeah.
Oh, it sounds absolutely wonderful. Can it be out tomorrow?
I know. I wish I'd had it 20 years ago to help in my own clinics.
Yeah, gosh.
And it's illustrated, and the graphic design are just so great. It's going to be, I hope, a real pleasure to hold and look at too.
Awesome. I'm happy that you're putting something out there for people.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to get hold of you, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
My website, bethbrightacupuncture.com. I have the contact information there.
And that's Bright spelled B-R-I-G-H-T for those of you who are interested. Yeah. And then you have a contact form on there, right?
Yep. Okay. Phone, text, email.
Yeah. And do you work with people remotely through telehealth, through Zoom or things like that? Or?
Yeah, I do. I do remote healing sessions too.
Great.
With Qigong. And can't do acupuncture remotely, but can do Qigong very effectively.
Sounds good. Well, Beth, I could speak to you for hours because you have a world of information in that head of yours and body of yours that I would love to have access to. It's just your breadth of knowledge is just amazing. I'm just so in awe of what you know and understand about how we are.
Don't be. There are people who know much more.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. We that's not the basis for appreciating what you do know, right? So thank you for your devotion and dedication to helping people and explaining that to people like me. And I'm really just so grateful that you took the time to be on here.
You're welcome. And thank you too, Rick, for all the good help you give in this world.
Sure. Yeah. And hopefully we can speak soon again. So
That'd be great.
thank you very much and enjoy your day.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.